Welcome back to a new video. So I thought this would be a good time to kind of go through my programming and how things have been going, since things have been going really well. So for each one of the quote unquote weeks, it's just 7 days of training. So it's not necessarily, Monday through Friday, because I'm not training for a specific time frame, right, like a specific date. So I'm just going through the sessions as they come to me. So the first week here, and I went back to when I started the 3x10s with 120. On the top left, I built my estimated maxes. I did 125 earlier this year. I did 126 at the competition. So for the current year, I actually did 130 earlier this year from the floor. So that's, technically my best of the year, I believe. But much more recently in the summer, I did 125 and I've done 120 even more recent than that. And then I estimated my clean and jerk max to be 160. I did 166 earlier this year at my competition, but 160 I've been attempting, and I've successfully done it in the summer, so definitely think that's there. And the back squat, just kind of estimated at 230. I know I could probably do a little bit more. I did it a couple times relatively recently, and I believe earlier in the year I did like 232. I think that's the best I've done this year. And then front squat I just put 185 because I believe I've done that pretty recently, but it's not a lift I'm necessarily really focused on pushing up. It's kind of the back squat, and obviously the classic list, but the back squat's number one priority. But just there as kind of a reference, if you want to think of the numbers that I'm talking about in terms of like percentages and stuff, those are just kind of some base, just to give you more context of what's going on. So we look through the first week. I'm not going to go through necessarily every day of training, but just kind of talk about things, and if there's different things to note that I remember about life stuff that might have gotten in the way, then I'll mention that, because I'm thinking of the day too, and there's some stuff with that. But start out with the back squats with 3x10, and so pretty standard start to any sort of program. Lightweight, practicing doing the higher reps, which will take some tolerance to get used to, the kind of the fitness for it. And then kind of the general structure that I was trying to adhere to is have a day where I'm doing the classic lifts, back squats, and then the next day essentially lighter stuff. And at first really 3 weeks, doing a front squat and then some sort of pull after doing essentially just pressing work. And the goal of the pressing work initially when I started this, and one of the motivations for starting just hammering back squats, is to get my shoulder from essentially 95% to 100% and getting the mobility there, getting it to feel just good anytime I train. And I think it's pretty much there after these 4 weeks. But the reason I wanted to do an SGP is snatch grip press, just the abbreviation for it, and then overhead press, the OHP, and doing the muscle variation for both was just to get the weight up, because it's 40 kilos and 50 kilos, so it's pretty light. So there's nothing too radical there, but it's really just trying to feel that full range of motion as I'm going without any painful crackling or just discomfort in that range of motion. And I'll say at first, when I was doing these initial days, it wasn't too bad, but I definitely didn't have 100% pain-free, resistant-free movement. And so, sorry, I have some food baking. We're just going to hammer right through that. But what was I saying? Oh, so the goal of these sessions was not necessarily to accumulate a lot of volume, but was to try to create pain-free movement. And then each one of these nights, so at night before I went to bed, doing a lot of mobility work to really try to stretch, particularly the upper body, but I ended up doing the lower body mobility work as well. Since once you do the upper body, at least for me, is mentally easier just to do lower body as well, just to hit a little bit of everything. And I remember on this day too, the reason I went kind of crazy on the front squats, in the X's next one means I missed it. So I missed 180, and I remember it like slipped off. So it's pretty close to making it, and then missed 183, and that was not close. Then did a 300 kilogram deadlift. It's because I had conferences the next day. So this like next calendar day I didn't train. So day 3 was the next day that I trained. So I believe conferences were on this day, were like a Tuesday. And so then I ended up training on, would have been the Wednesday or whatever. I forget exactly, but you kind of get the idea with that. So typically not just going to go absolutely berserk with that, but also the goal with the weightlifting stuff days was to move in a way that felt comfortable, where I was moving technically correctly, but also the bar was just getting into the correct position, more so for the snatch, and just making sure everything was feeling good and symmetrical with both the snatch and the clean jerk, and then hammering the back squats there. So with the snatch, did 90 again for the 3 sets of 1, added some volume to clean jerk as well with 125, And then the back squats jumped up 20 kilos to 3x10. And this is where things kind of just went crazy, because I really wasn't anticipating being able to progress the back squats like this. And maybe it just, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, you can leave your theories in the comments, but I honestly don't know why. And you'll kind of see like the kind of rapid progression of them. And yeah, I don't know. I'm just trying to ride the wave, I suppose. But then more muscle snatches, did a front squat 160, 175, just singles, and then snatch pulls, 3 sets of 5 at 110. The goal was initially with my idea to do a front squat single on this day to kind of practice movement, but also the main focus is getting some snatch pulls in, as well as, you know, that essentially mobility work with that. Day 5 did 90, 100 up to 140, then back squats 3 sets of 10 at 160, and this is where the reps started to get fitness, from a fitness standpoint, difficult, but still we're moving quite well. But you notice, you know, 120, 140, and then to 160, just moving right up to there. And the reason I'm setting it up in kind of like a Google slideshow is just like visually you can see the whole week. And for me, I kind of like looking at it that way, or at least the format of this is more aesthetically pleasing when I'm trying to look at the whole thing together. And then another muscle snatch day, I actually got up to 180 on this day. I believe that's the heaviest I've front squatted in this 4-week span. The clean pulls here, 160, 3x5. Pretty lightweight for the pulls, or pretty easy, I should say. Not necessarily light, but not necessarily very difficult for me. Next day, the clean jerks, 90 for a single, and then 100 for the 3 singles. And the clean jerk, 125 for a single, and then 140 for 2 singles. And then that's where I actually hit the lifetime PR set of 10 back squats. My previous best was like 183 or 4. This is like 408, I believe. And my best prior to that was 405, which I had done several years before that. And there wasn't a reason why I didn't necessarily try to progress that, other than the fact that a set of 10 maximally in the back squat is really difficult. But yeah, this was, from a fitness standpoint, really difficult to do. But, you know, like I said, in rapid progress, going from 120 to 40 to 60 to 185 to, you know, immediately a lifetime max within, you know, same essentially like 8 calendar day span, but, you know, within 7 training days, which was pretty surprising to me. But let's look at the second week here, see if it actually goes through. There we go. So more muscle snatches and muscle cleans. I added 5 kilos to both of those. That wasn't actually 171, it's 170, just a typo there. But then snatch pulls here, 3x3 at 120. And then on this day, if you see an X next to it, just like with the front squats at the beginning, just means I missed it. So missed 100, made 110. Then clean jerks, 125, 40, 50. Then back squats. And this was kind of my idea, and I think one of the reasons why squatting out well is that I reset. So after I did that big set of 10, the next squat session, I've decreased the reps, increased the set, essentially keeping the squat total at 30 reps. Now, obviously 4 times 8 is 32. So, you know, between 30 and 32, but dropped all the way back down to 130, which of course makes the intensity significantly easier. And then to practice that, or at least, you know, is an easier squat session as I'm building back with that. Next day, more muscles, front squats, single 150, 170, clean pulls, 170, 2x3, and then I did a bonus set of 225 for a set of 6. Meant to do a set of 5, remember, just miscounting that. Next day, did 100, missed 110, and then made 110 3 times for 3 singles. Then did 125, 40, 50, did 150 for 2 singles, and missed 160, and pleasantly surprised, like clean jerks kind of rapidly progressed with this. It was kind of interesting, especially like doing 150 for 2 singles. Like I was really surprised that, you know, doing the squats weren't fatiguing me for just the weightlifting movements in general. So I was pleasantly surprised about that. But the snatches were much more limited because I was trying to build the consistency with them and trying to make sure that my left shoulder was just kind of catching everything consistently. But the jerks were kind of developing quite well. Cleans, I was honestly just surprised the cleans were going well. My quad tendons were feeling really good, and it's still feeling really good at this point. So it's kind of interesting with that. Next day, more muscle, and then went up to 60 for 1 set of 5. And I'm not sure if I actually did 3 sets or just 1 set, but I think I might have done 3 and then did a bonus set there. We'll see. Or I don't know. I kind of forget that. These days aren't like super critical, like I've been talking about. It's just building that mobility. Yes, more snatch grip press because it does change to push press eventually. Then muscle clean overhead press up to 60. 1 plus 8, so that just means 1 muscle, and then 8 presses for 3 sets of 60. Then front squats 155, 175, snatch pulls 130 for 3x3. Next day, snatches up to 115, missed it, made it. Clean and jerks, 150, missed it, made it, 155. Front squats, 175 4 by 8. That was really difficult to do. Many ways, like the set to 8, and the weight is obviously decently significant. Next day, snatch grip press with 60, and then overhead press with 70, front squats with 170, 180. And so basically the only reason I was adding weight is that the shoulder was feeling really good at this point. I was just getting bored on these days. I wanted to challenge myself more. And just wanted to do a bit more weight. So I in theory was going to keep it the same, but because my shoulder was pretty rapidly progressing, I just kind of kept progressing with the weight a little bit. And then is this where things went off the rails? Yes. All right. So I'll start with the positive. So day one, see, did 100, 110 for 2 singles, missed 115, then made it for 3 singles. That was really good. And then clean jerks did 140, 150, then missed 160 twice. I just need to do 155 for multiple singles, and then I should be able to do 160. It's they're close attempts, or at least they're good attempts in the sense that like I have a possibility of making them. I just have to be smarter. Just don't need to jump to 150 to 160, especially at this like juncture of my training. It's more important to build a consistency with maximal loads and not just take 10 kilo jumps once I'm up to this weight. At 200 here for 1 by 7. I was hoping to do by 8, but once I did the 7th rep, my soul left my body, so decided not to do that. And strangely, the next day, my calves were really the limiting factor. So the next day, I was obviously tired from doing that much work the previous day, but my calves, my left calf in particular, was super tight, which is a really interesting effect of doing the back squats just in general. But obviously my back and legs were a little bit sore, but the calves were like really, really tight, which seeing all these people pop their Achilles in the NFL kind of freaks me out that I would somehow break my Achilles. But I think as long as I don't get tackled by a 315-pound defensive tackle, I think I'll be all right, because my movement patterns, while I'm moving heavy weights, it's in a very controlled environment, which is one of the reasons why weightlifting's really generally safe to do, is that there's not external factors for the most part that are getting in your way. There's not someone tackling you. You don't have to, cut in a random way on a field. There's not wet grass, hopefully, or like a wet platform. It's pretty standard in a pretty controlled environment. But on this next day, because I was kind of tired and I was kind of planning on resetting anyway, back down to lighter stuff for the weightlifting movements, decided to see what I could snatch grip press, and I did 70 for a triple. And then I was trying to do 90 for a couple reps. I ended up just doing for 1 just because it was too heavy, but it just kind of made sense. I wasn't really pushing overhead press very heavy, but again, shoulders feeling really good, so I was able to push that up. Then the next day was still sore. My calves really in particular were sore, so just did the snatch and clean jerk, didn't do any squats, just to give myself another day to recover. So essentially like 2 really light days to recover from that 200 kilogram squat. So obviously it took some out of me, mostly my calves. It's just such a weird thing, but sometimes you gotta be smart about it. And I actually scrolled down, I didn't realize it would do that, but decided in this next span to reset things and kind of change. Instead of doing the muscles plus a snatch grip press, I did power snatch plus snatch push press, which is a significantly easier movement, but it allows me to add a little bit more load. And then same with the overhead press, instead of doing just strict press, doing push press and doing a 1+3 with 80 there. And this is where the 150 for 2 on the second one is where I strained my back, so that was really uncomfortable. And still finished the rep, but it was like right at the top of it, my right below my ribs on the left side of my lower back, felt the strain as it happened. I did some snatch pulls. I guess I snatch pulled up to 150. I don't remember actually doing that, but it was just singles I remember doing after that, and it was really uncomfortable. I was planning on doing reps potentially, but that just wasn't going to be happening. Don't know if I actually did 150, so that might just be another typo there, but definitely did like 2 singles, and I remember that being uncomfortable. But strangely, the next day, with the benefit of ibuprofen, I was able to train normally, which I was really surprised about. So the weightlifting stuff went back to being light numbers anyway, so it worked out in that regard. I wasn't going to push heavier than this regardless, but I did 3 singles at 90, did 2 singles at 100, 2 singles at 125 and 140, and nothing was aggravated. I was really surprised that I was able to do these movements and not have any discomfort. And then the back squats, I didn't have any, because like with the snatch and clean jerk, I was feeling it a little bit, but nothing was progressively getting worse. So I just kept working through it. With the back squats, like I felt literally nothing in my back, which is really interesting. But I remember the 140 for this 5x6 was extremely easy as well, and it moved really easily, which makes sense. It's 140, but I was surprised just how that session went. And the next day, didn't do front squats, so I haven't done a front squat since this day, and didn't do any pulls. So this day I didn't take any ibuprofen, and my back was quite sore, and I didn't want to re-aggravate it, especially on a lighter day like this. So I kept both of those at 40, so a really light day, a really quick day. And I could have done more if I did like pressing out of the rack, but it was one of those things that's like, it's better to just not do as much just to allow myself to recover with that. And then on the day after that, it's basically, mostly recover, but I remember taking more ibuprofen on this day just to make sure that there wasn't going to be any extreme discomfort, and so I could still, train normally. But the snatches, did 3 singles at 100, missed 110, then made 110 3 times. Then clean jerks, 2 singles at 140, missed 150, then made 150. And I remember that 150, it's like the heavier clean jerks are starting to, move consistently, especially if I can get to 150 every time I do them, then that's always a good thing. But obviously, the goal is to get to more than that. The back squats, that 170 for a 5x6, so starting to get even heavier with the 5x6s pretty quickly as well. And I couldn't really tell you why I jumped from 140 to 170. It just felt like it was possible, and that's kind of how I'm approaching it. It's like, what is theoretically possible for me to do in the next session that I do the squats at? Obviously, I'm not going to go like 140 to like 210, but I kind of have the idea of like what I want my top set of 6 to potentially be. So I kind of, have that in the back of my mind. So it's somewhat the thought, but it's just like taking a jump that's not just always 10 kilos or 60 kilos, not always doing the same weight with the squats, since that's what I'm really trying to be aggressive and push. And then the clean jerks and snatches, like if I hit the same weights every time, then I'm fine with that as long as the squats are going up. And so this is the current quote unquote week that I'm on. So it started with power snatches, and it was kind of funny because I accidentally went up to 80 because I forgot that I was trying to stay at 60. But once I did 80, the power snatch itself wasn't as easy as I would hope it would be, but the snatch push presses were super easy. So I did a 1+5 there, just one set, and same with the power clean push press, just one set at 100. But what's also interesting with those movements is I'm doing them kind of touch and go, almost like a CrossFit type way. And so those have been feeling interesting to do it that way. And I want to probably keep it that way for these days because it's like a athletically challenging things. It's not like it makes it necessarily easier or more difficult. Maybe it makes it a little bit easier for some people, but it feels like it's a coordination practice thing. And I don't really know the exact term or the exact way to describe it, but it just kind of, I can think about the coordination and not just I'm doing the movement itself or just like doing a strength movement. I don't know. It's like more athletic, I suppose, but that's what I did on that day. And then the pulls, triple at 160 and then 3x3 at 190. So for me, pretty easy pulls, but 190, it's starting to get up to a pretty decently heavy number. Snatches the next day, 2 singles at 100. I was trying to keep it the same as the previous snatch session that I had up here because I missed that first 110, then made 110 3 times. So I was hoping to make make all of the 110s that I did, but made 2 singles at 100, then missed 110, made 110 twice, missed it, and then made it. So it wasn't very consistent on this day. But then clean jerks went really well. 2 singles at 140, 2 singles at 150. And the back squats, this is probably one of my best squat sessions as far as volume I did in a session, the 195 for a 5x6. I honestly was not sure if I was physically going to be able to do it. My thought was something between 190 and 200 and settled on 195. 200 would have been way too much. 190 would have been a good number as well. So 195 was definitely the limits of what I could do for this rep scheme, but I was able to do, and I was really surprised with that and actually recovered pretty quickly from it as well, which is interesting as well. Next day, more push presses, and hopefully I muted that in time for the sneezes, but we're just going to keep hammering through since we're 19 minutes in. I'm not doing multiple takes of this. So Same kind of thing, the touch and go with the 80, and then with the push presses, did 5 reps instead of 3. Same kind of like touch and go reps. I'm also doing the power cleans with straps on just to, make it more challenging in a way, or just to kind of stretch my front racks a little bit. And then snatch pulls up at 130. Really, at this point, my back's 100%, so I'm not even, worried. I don't even think I took any ibuprofen this day till currently. I think for the day 2 for the squat session, I took some just because I was like, I'm just gonna be a really heavy squat. I've never done 195 for this many sets and rep before, and it's like, the last thing I want is to be thinking that like my back's a little tight or whatever with that. So it was more like, I probably would have been fine without it, but it was more just out of an abundance of caution. This is day 4 and day 5. Didn't need anything. Back was 100%, which is really nice. Essentially, it was like almost less than a week, but basically a week, and no discomfort, and I was able to not miss any training essentially for the most part, and train pretty normally that whole time. But this is what I did yesterday. So the 100 for 2x2 or 2x1, and then 100 for 3 singles, and then 115 for a single. The 110s I wasn't really happy with. They're all kind of like pressed out and not really that snappy, but the 115 felt really good, and potentially some of the work the previous day might have been a little bit too aggressive. That made me a little bit more fatigued for those, but clean jerks went well. 140, 150, missed 155, and I just pushed the jerk forward. It was one that I did well enough as far as the strength of it, but the technique, I just pushed it forward. It just wasn't, you're not able to save 155 when it's out in front of you like that. But then I came back and was really happy with how the second single went, obviously making the jerk, but just in general it was really good. And then the 140 kind of stunk, to be honest. The lockout was pretty bad, but for the 150 and 155 that I ended up making were pretty good. The 215, like in theory, I was thinking of doing it for 6. I kind of knew like it probably wasn't very likely, because I've never done, doing the set of 7 with 200 was like a pretty maximal rep set that I did. And so I kind of knew, it was like, it's pretty unlikely that I'm going to add 15 kilos and do just one less rep. And I didn't necessarily want to, break myself in half doing it. I definitely think that obviously if I was fresh, I would have been able to do, another rep or 2. But even on that day when I finished the triple, I was like, I think I could have done one more. It would have been really ugly, and would have been not utilizing my legs in a very good way. Would have been a lot of back. But I was like, in theory, and that said, I could have done one more. And obviously if I was fresh, maybe that 5, maybe even that 6. But, it's just like, it's good to kind of keep that in mind when you are thinking of those numbers and how you're going to, program different things. What is possible. Obviously, from a practical standpoint, I did it for 3, and that's what I'm going to be thinking about the next time I'm trying to do more. But the session I just finished doing, I actually missed an 80 kilogram power snatch. I just was thinking too much about the push presses, and it's one of those, like, I could have just ran it out and made it, or like took 2 steps forward, but it's 80 kilos. It's a power snatch. Like, I'm not going to fight too hard for that. I'm just going to redo it. So it was mostly me just being lazy and not wanting to run it out, or being lazy with the technique and then not wanting to run out the rep with that. But the power clean push press, I actually have a typo here. So I actually did it with 110, which I was really surprised about. So the touch and go push press reps, the 1+3 with 110, which was pleasantly, surprisingly not too bad. So I might keep it there, but we'll kind of have to play that by feel, because it's getting to the point, like 110 is a decent power clean for me anyway, and like the intensity of the push presses is obviously getting pretty high with that, so I don't necessarily want to go crazy with them. But if it's feeling pretty easy, then you just kind of have to go to what feels continually easy. Clean pulls was definitely pretty aggressive with these today, and I kind of went more aggressive with the pulls, because I know tomorrow I'm not going to be trying to snatch 115 or anything. I'm going back to like 90 or 100 or whatever. Like, it's kind of resetting the weightlifting movements as well. Those are obviously blank because I haven't done those days, and I didn't want to put like what I'm thinking of doing, because I just kind of have to sit down, and I have it like mapped out on my dry erase board, but I just didn't feel like typing it in to here, frankly, and I don't really have a good reason for not doing that. I guess laziness. But the pulls did 225 for 3 and then 255 for 3, and I put clean pulls, and you can see when I do deadlifts and stuff that's like, it's kind of not really a pull. Like, I'm not really getting elevation on the bar or anything like that. But for me, it's a delineation without much of a difference. Like, it's a clean deadlift essentially, but it doesn't really matter to me. The only really differentiation thing for me is if I have my weightlifting shoes on or not. So a clean pull or deadlift will always have weightlifting shoes on. If I'm just doing a regular deadlift, it's just with no shoes on, it makes it a lot easier for me without weightlifting shoes on to pull heavier, just because my hips can be in a more mechanically advantageous position. But I thought that'd be an interesting video to kind of go through and talk about my progress this week, since my progress has been really good with really all my lifts, but particularly the back squat. And I'm hoping with this next, span of, or the next week of training or whatever, is that I'm able to attempt 225 for a double or a triple. If I do it for a double, that would be PR. My best double ever is 220 currently. So if I did it for 2, that would already be good. If I did it for 225, that'd be or did do 25 for 3, that would be fantastic. So that would I'm kind of talking in circles now, but that's kind of the thought there. And then a weightlifting stuff, kind of similar to what I just did, to where it starts out lighter and then it builds up a little bit towards the end of the week. I want to start potentially trying to do 120 in some of these sessions, but I just want the consistency with the 110s when I'm doing it a couple times, and the 115s a couple times. So if the snatches continue to move well, and I'm not having stupid misses and stuff because I'm being lazy, not putting the correct effort or doing the correct technique with them, then they'll kind of stay around there for now, because I've said it several times, the emphasis is to improve the squat, not necessarily to improve the weightlifting stuff right now. But if I can do both, obviously that would be ideal. But as long as squats are moving in the direction that they are, that will be good. But the pulls won't be much more than, or won't be pushed much more aggressively. So this will be the heaviest I'll pull for a little bit. Then I'll kind of dial it back down, probably even lighter than that 130. And this alternate with the snatch pulls. I'll mention that too. So you can probably notice on these light days that I alternate between clean pulls and snatch pulls. So that's what I've been doing throughout most of the time. If I'm doing a pull, it's whatever I hadn't done the previous time. So if I did a snatch pull the one day, then the last time I would have done it would have been a clean pull. So it just alternates with that, and there's not a rhyme or reason. It's just so I do a little bit of both and get some practice of snatch pulls in with that. But probably won't be pushing 255 for or pushing the clean pulls for clean deadlifts or deadlifts for much more weight. We'll definitely reset down and just kind of progress back up. But hopefully have a nice little fun session with 225, and maybe I do that for 2 or 3 reps. But hopefully the way this stuff continues to go well as well. And once I get to probably the natural end of this progression, so the next week of squats is 8 sets of 4. Once I get down to doing doubles, probably maybe try a new max. Just kind of have to play that by feel. And I don't know. I think that's going to be about it for this one. So if you have questions about how I'm progressing things, or suggestions about things I could adjust, let me know. But you can kind of see the main focus of my training right now is the back squat, and everything else kind of just feeds into that for the most part. But everything's going really well, so that's why I kind of wanted to make a video talking about it, because I don't really, it's strange almost that even though I'm doing so many back squats and so much squat volume, that all of my training is just going pretty well, besides the hiccup with the front squat. But even despite that, it's still going really well. So hopefully the momentum continues, the squat continues to go up, and then I can build some positive momentum into the beginning of 2025. So when I do my yearly competition at the end of May, I have a lot of good numbers to potentially be reaching for there. That's kind of the long-term goal, and now just trying to train as hard as I can right now. But that's gonna be it for this one. So if you made it to this point of the video, or to any point, I appreciate it. And take care and have a great one. Peace.